A very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lauren making headlines. Major developments in Barbados' health sector. They include plans to significantly improve pediatric care. Barbados getting closer to introducing local testing for the coronavirus. Sagicor announces it will be restructuring its operations, and the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation announces major plans for the 2020 Olympics.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
And in our top story, the Queen Elizabeth Hospital is set to receive an additional $3 million from the government of Barbados to deal with the country's high rates of heart attacks. This revelation from Prime Minister Mia Motley during a ceremony on the grounds of her official residence. Ms. Motley says while the mortality rate for myocardial infarction stands at 8% in the developed world, it is a staggering 37% here in Barbados and the Caribbean. And that's why government has committed to making the funds available to the QEH before the end of this fiscal year.
In addition to us taking a presentation at the CARICOM Heads of Government meeting next week from the leading cardiologists of the region, that the government of Barbados will proceed to being able to make the difference by the expenditures that are necessary from ambulances right back to adjustments within the accident and emergency department that will allow us to be able to deal with patients facing these difficulties within the shortest possible period of time, which immediately increases their capacity to survive. To that extent, therefore, $3 million will be made available to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital as special project funds to get this project up and running.
Prime Minister Motley also revealed that work to expand the Accident and Emergency Department, for which the hospital has already received $10 million from the government, will begin very soon. A further $30 million has been allocated to update the facilities' equipment. Now, a significant disclosure impacting the lives of many Barbadian children was also made at that event at Illawarra Court. It could see an end to children having to travel overseas to receive certain types of medical treatment. As Sharika Griffith tells us, plans are in the works to establish a center for pediatric excellence at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital.
The Shaw Center for Pediatric Excellence is to be set up through a partnership between the Government of Barbados and the Hospital for Sick Children in Toronto, with support from the Les Louis Shaw Foundation and the Clinton Foundation.
We are happy to announce a Pediatric Center of Excellence here in Barbados that will be established over the next 7 years. It is our hope to create a modern environment for patient and family, while aspiring to establish a center of innovation for pediatric research, education, and care.
According to Director of Capacity Building with the Center for Global Child Health at Sick Kids Canada, Brian Smith, scores of medical professionals will be trained and redeployed across the country's health system.
The program will develop a specialist nursing program here on the island of Barbados in pediatrics that will train an initial 40 pediatric nurses to support the Queen Elizabeth Hospital and the island's polyclinics. It'll then look at training 4 physicians in targeted high-need pediatric subspecialties through fellowships at the Hospital for Sick Children.
Physical upgrades are also planned for the island's hospital and polyclinics.
The program will refurbish the Queen Elizabeth Hospital pediatric ward, specifically looking at procuring necessary medical equipment and installing furniture in the wards and waiting rooms to improve the family experience.
Executive Chair of the Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Juliet Bino-Sutherland, says establishing a center of excellence will also benefit children in the wider region.
Over time, we see this partnership assisting us to reduce the need for sending children overseas as we're able to translate some of the expertise that now exists in that Center of Excellence for Kids here in Barbados with the existing specialist expertise that we have here.
Under the program, a patient amenity fund will be established to support families from the Eastern Caribbean to access care at the QEH. Through a collaboration with the Ministry of Health, the University of the West Indies, and the George Allen Chronic Disease Research Center, a national childhood obesity surveillance program is also to be completed. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Barbados will soon obtain testing kits for the novel coronavirus. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kenneth George made the disclosure at the Ministry of Health's public information session on the coronavirus at the Lloyd Erskine Sanford Center. Rianne Phillips attended and tells us more.
Once the kits are obtained, the acting chief medical officer says Barbados will become the first Caribbean country to offer testing for its population.
Barbados has taken an unprecedented step to try to have testing here in short order. And therefore, the Minister of Health and Wellness has been working closely with the Pan American Health Organization to have that facility in Barbados. And the kits are coming shortly. The primers are coming shortly, and after a quick test, after a quick verification and training up of the staff, Barbados should be able to test extremely shortly. So we indicated that CARFA can test now, but Barbados would be the first country that I know about in the region that may be able to offer tests to its population.
He was speaking at a sensitization session where health officials gave detailed demonstrations and explanations of the practices to be adopted to keep the novel coronavirus at bay. They included the best solutions to be used for sanitizing contaminated areas.
Most of your bleaches that you will find in the supermarket are anywhere from 5.25 to about 6%. And that is the bleach solution that we need to use. Please remember that using a spray solution is really not best, because even though it is designed to make sure that the area is covered, you cannot guarantee that every part of the surface was covered with a spray. The hairs of your mouth ought to be going like this, not up in the air, because what are you doing? The same thing you don't want to do, which is you're generating a spray that goes into the air.
And the most appropriate personal protective equipment that should be worn.
As you can see him doing, he's cupping the mask in one palm, all right? And he has the two bands in a position that he can then place the mask over his nose and mouth, and the bottom elastic he's going to bring it over his head and secure. Once he's done that, then he'll take the top piece and put over his head as well.
The virus continues to pose a low risk to Barbados, but health officials will still implement the relevant precautionary measures. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
Well, Barbadians who want to watch the 2020 Tokyo Summer Olympics will be able to tune in a number of convenient ways thanks to the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation and its partners. Word of this from CBC Chairman David Leacock, who made the announcement during a media conference where it was revealed that the corporation will be the lead broadcaster for the 2020 Games. Mr. Leacock says in addition to TV coverage, the Games will also be streamed online.
The corporation is looking forward to executing delivery of these games in your living rooms, on your cell phones, on your tablets, wherever you are in the world. We are going to do our job. Already our 98.1 is streaming right on your cell phones. It can be done. It is being done on your cell phone as an app. We are here to stay in this industry.
And the corporation is undertaking a new strategic plan for the year 2020 to 2021. And Mr. Leacock notes over the coming months, CBC will become a force to be reckoned with. He says the success of CBC is also a success for the people of Barbados and encouraged them to lend their support. Mr. Leacock also touched on the issue of poor reception experienced on TV8 by subscribers of other providers.
If any of you are experiencing poor reception on TV8 from your current service provider, who is broadcasting TV8 without your permission, without our permission, please call the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation. we will switch you back over to TV8 for free, so that you can enjoy the real TV8 in outstanding, superior HD reception.
And we will hear more from Mr. Leacock and about the Olympics coverage later in Sports Night. 2 motorists have been lucky to escape major injuries following a freak accident in Archhall St. Thomas this morning. A truck heading downhill from Vaucluse encountered difficulties and struck a van which was traveling south along the Ronald Map Highway. Now, the force of the impact resulted in the van being pushed to the side of the highway, but the truck continued for some distance onto the Sandy Lane golf course. Emergency personnel from the Barbados Fire Service and the Royal Barbados Police Force were called to the scene. Well, despite last-minute changes to its docking arrangements, the Logos Hope still attracted thousands of Barbadians during its week-long stay here. Now, the vessel, regarded as the world's largest floating book fair, was originally scheduled to berth at the Flour Mill, but that was switched to the inner Bridgetown port. Rianne Phillips tells us more.
The change in docking site for the Logos Hope also meant a park and ride system had to be introduced for patrons. And despite the initial hiccups, its media relation officer Nicholas Suarez says the response from locals was overwhelming.
We have to go to the radio stations and to talk to people to clarify like the new schedules, opening and closing hours. So when days passed, people had this information, so people are coming more and more.
For the past week, thousands boarded the vessel and purchased several books. Among them, 41 students from the People's Cathedral and 116 from Hinesbury Primary.
I have a sticker book.
Any others are down there?
My sticker book is about coloring. I have a Cinderella book and I love it. I have an Elsa book and I have a Princess book and I have a Dr. Mustafa book.
Some even spoke of their experience at the world's largest floating book fair.
I would like to see all of these books in this boat. It was so great.
Why?
Because it didn't even move.
And for teachers, Logos Hope provided a perfect teaching opportunity outside of the classroom.
We are trying to raise an awareness of reading more books. We find that they are, watching the television a little bit too much. So we want them to realize that there's a need for our children to have books at home, books at school, so they can really learn how to express themselves.
All the students here will buy at least one reading book that will be age appropriate, and hopefully we can stimulate them to do some more reading. It's a good learning experience. A lot of students are getting to come on board a ship for the first time. Secondly, some are getting to shop on their own for the first time.
After selecting their books, the children participated in a musical.
If you're happy and you noise, tap your feet. If you're happy and you noise, tap your feet. If you're happy and you know it and you really want to show it. If you're happy and you know it, tap your feet.
Logos Hope left Barbados on Friday for its next stop in Jamaica. Rianne Phillips, CBC News.
Still to come, renewed concern about the process of deporting Jamaicans from the UK. Then a bit later in sports, Barbados Pride on top of the standings in the West Indies 4-Day Championship. But of course, before we get there, here is that tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Marijuana use has been linked to health problems, both physical and mental, including chronic coughing, chest colds, lung infections, breathing problems, cancer, depression, anxiety, and personal disturbances. Just because it comes from a plant does not mean it is harmless. This tip is brought to you in association with the National Council on Substance Abuse, promoting drug awareness. Regional stories now. 50 people are reportedly set to be deported from the UK to Jamaica tomorrow. But reports out of the UK are that these immigration detainees have not been able to contact their families or lawyers ahead of their deportation. More in this TVJ report.
Activists told the Guardian newspaper that the flight to Jamaica will carry dozens of people who have lived in the United Kingdom since they were children. They say there are strong cases for them to continue their lives in the UK. In the meantime, the British Home Office is also accused of holding detainees incommunicado. A lack of mobile signal is preventing them from contacting lawyers and their families. The issue was put to Jamaica's High Commissioner to the UK, Seth George Ramakan, on Radio Jamaica's Hotline program Wednesday.
Only this morning it came to my attention, and that is something that certainly ought not to be. The individuals who are being deported have a right to be heard. They have a right to have access to their lawyers.
In the Bahamas, one resident has launched a campaign to transform a village using volunteers. The details in this ZNS report.
President of Future of Our Neighborhoods, Jamal Strawn, boasts of his Nassau Village roots. He started PHONE 2 years ago to show that good things still reside in young people, including those who live in the Nassau Village community.
Initially, we have the every other Saturday breakfast outreach, but today we wanted to extend it into an environmental outreach.
That outreach is centered on a community cleanup, going door to door, helping to change the landscape and spirit of the Nassau Village area.
What we've done was jumped a 40-foot container in Nassau Village and on Soldier Road, and me and my team have been walking through the neighborhood, pretty much picking up all trash, garbage, old rotten furniture, putting it onto the truck and dumping them into the bin.
Strawn's team began with just 4 volunteers, but over time, as community members came out for a breakfast on the park, they realized the passion behind PHONE and signed up to partner with the initiative. Now at 35 strong, Strawn says the group continues to grow with more of a presence in the area.